So tonight we start off with a cup of quinoa. I put 3/4 of white quinoa and 1/4 of the multi-tricolour. And if you can sieve it, wash it under the sieve, wash well, and then just tip it in here. Sorry, would you mind just adding a bit more water and then can I just use the spoon? I don't. If you can just put add water and then drain it off. Turn your heat up to medium heat, okay, and then you just start stirring it around until the moisture goes off. And while you're doing that, you can add in perhaps, if you don't like your quinoa really sweet, because I'm going to be using coconut milk, you can add in about half a cube of half a stock cube, or 1 or 2 pinches of salt. Thank you. Yeah, just pop it in there, and then if you can stir it until it's nearly dry, and when it's dry, you just add in one can, and then just keep stirring gently, and a small amount of like about 2 teaspoonsful of agave, or this time I'm using the maple syrup.
Did you say you could use agave if you wanted?
Yes, the recipe says agave. But if you haven't got that, it works quite well with maple syrup. Just be really careful to keep stirring it every so often. So as soon as that's dry, Cheryl, you'll be able to add the coconut milk in. If you dry it out and toast it a little bit, it takes the bitterness of the quinoa. And while Cheryl's busy doing that, turning the water heat up. Mine will too. I put in, that's meant to be about 15 mils of olive oil, which is about half or a bit more of a tablespoonful. And this one. And then you add in, first of all, your spices. So, garlic and ginger. And I know the recipe says later on, add your spices. But at this stage, I was a late teenager and we had Indian friends, and I said to the lady who was a friend of my mum's, I said, I can never get my curry to taste as good as yours. And she said very generously, well, I'll come over tomorrow and I'll show you how we do it. And she taught us that you put your spices in the oil, including whatever curry. Now you can use plain curry powder, or I will use a bit of korma paste, but you can use a curry paste as well. Sorry, Miriam, can I have a teaspoon? And while that's heating up, if you can just stir your paste until it's nearly ready to stick on the bottom, and then add in your onion, those two will be next. Thank you, dear. So if this is a bit slow, I'm sorry.
So the reason she was suggesting to add that is because it sort of infuses the aromas into the oil, which gives you a better taste.
If you extract your spices into the oil, you will find that you get, you're then able to extract them out into the liquid. Otherwise, you don't get as much. And with the turmeric, the same applies. So this is where I would put in about half a teaspoon of turmeric as well. Some people like it and other people don't, so I'm trying to just find an average. Turmeric is a
special reason why you're using turmeric?
Turmeric and all the spices have been shown to be high antioxidants, but you don't need a lot. It gives flavour, but it also helps to stimulate your neurotransmitters. Is that right, Ross?
Mm-hmm. And if you put cracked pepper over the turmeric, as I say it, then that helps to release its essence.
You only need a trace of black pepper. It does help to release the turmeric. And yes, this is starting to warm up, and as soon as all the moisture is out of the...
Well, I can't remember what it is, but if you've got some health, I can't remember which type of health problems, turmeric with black pepper is a good remedy for it.
It fights cancer.
Exactly. It does a lot of things in the body because it's an antioxidant and it helps to mop up all the free radicals and the reactive oxygen species that do damage to our cells. So if I can just show you, that's starting to come. Oh, Donna. And Dorothy, what am I trying to teach you? You should be here teaching me. So come and tell me if I'm not doing it right. I need some tips. Come and look over my shoulders, Donna.
Tell me about quinoa.
Well, we're waiting for it to cook. Quinoa is very high in protein. It's also high in nutrients. And it's a very good alternative grain to rice. Now you could put any of the whole grain rices, but having this sizzling in the bottom, and it's all starting to just meld with the oil. That's about the time that I put.
Cheryl, can you show us what's happening with the quinoa?
Nothing much.
It's just had the water evaporating off, and as soon as it's dry and just starting to stick on the bottom, if you can throw the coconut oil in and just keep it stirring gently. Okay, so I'll give this onion a little bit of a chance to steam up, and then I'll start throwing the veggies in. Now, how many of you use tempeh? Okay?
Claire.
Hmm? Oh, sorry? Okay. Tempeh, whichever way you like to say it, is a fermented soybean product, and it has more antioxidants because they fermented it. So that's why I'm trying to get tonight's recipe to brighten up our brain, mop up all of those bad hydroxyl and reactive oxygen species that come around and cause our cells damage.
So you're using that instead of the firm tofu, is that right?
You could use tofu if you wanted to, but this one is one up on tofu. Some people like the flavour, other people don't, and so, if you don't like it tonight, and I always find with curries, I don't know, Dorothy, when does a curry taste best, the same day or the next day?
The next day.
The next day. Yeah. That's true. What am I telling you?
No, I don't really.
Come on up here.
and stuff, but you can taste it is better the next day.
Yes, I think the flavour is awesome,
Yeah.
and that's why I cooked most of the curry except for the greens. I'll go into it. The greens have been done today, but the rest of it was done yesterday. So the onion is starting to go clear, so that's about the time that I've put in capsicum, broccoli, carrot, any of your other veggies. And quite soon I'll be putting the other. So how are you going, Cheryl? We'll just need to stir that about I found at home about every 3 minutes you give it a stir, and
So it just needs to come to the boil yet.
okay.
Marlene, is there a cautionary note? I heard of someone getting, I think it was liver damage to the point where they died, and they had too much turmeric or too many, some sort of spice or...
You've brought up a wonderful point, Pamela, and that is, in medicine, a little bit can be fabulous, and it'll be a great boost for you. And then, a lot might send you downhill, okay? There's a toxic dose of anything. The toxic dose of water is 4 gallons a day. So, too much of a good thing is not necessarily a good thing. So, you're all, if you would all like to come up and file pass and get some exercise and go back, we'll show you where the cooking's at, because I want to keep this on the plate, if you don't mind. So, the onion is clear now, so that's about the time that I put the rest of the veggies in. Don't spill this, it'll be messy. Now, I actually like the light coconut cream.
Can I just marry us?
And one of coconut milk. Another point, if you're just using curry powder or paste, half a spoonful of the chilli will give it a bit of a kick. Sweet, I use sweet chilli sauce or something like that then. Thank you, Jan. You can come again, Jan.
She loves cooking. I love cooking.
Right, and at this stage I'll just put tomato and kale, because yesterday, I know the recipe says snow peas, but there wasn't a snow pea in sight. And I'll put the tempeh in now too. So we're in the process with putting these the creams in with it to extract the spices from the oil into a liquid base, and this is when I just need it to simmer away for about, maybe I'll just turn it up a bit, and simmer away for about another quarter of an hour. Okay, so if you want to come, you can have a look at the quinoa. It's gradually cooking down, softening up, and
It's probably 10 minutes to go yet.
so have you got any questions so far?
Are most of these ingredients good for
I mean,
brain. Is that what you're saying? Most of these ingredients are good for the brain or dementia?
yes, a lot of them, each of them, or almost all of them, have antioxidants. A lot of the foods, like the broccoli, cauliflower, kale, cabbage, any of those crucifix veggies, you know, if you look at the flower on the crucifix veggies, it's got 4 petals. Any of the crucifix veggies have sulfur in them, and the sulfur gives us, there's 3 amino acids that have got sulfur in them. There's cysteine, and there's methionine, and there's another very important one, it's called glutathione. Now glutathione is a 3-chain amino acid. It's got cysteine and glutamic acid and glycine. And that is one of our most powerful antioxidants. With Alzheimer's, over a period of time, and with the toxic burden of our society and ageing and exhaust fumes and everything else that comes along in life, we gradually accumulate a lot of toxins in the body. But the good news is we have multiple organs that help to detoxify us. Now, we've got a lot of friendly gut organisms, and they help with detoxing. We've got a beautiful liver that helps with detoxing. That's its principal role. And it's got to have enough glutathione to be able to function properly. And the next organ that helps with detoxing is the kidneys, okay? And that takes the water-soluble toxins out through the urine. We have, along with the liver, we have the gallbladder that concentrates the bile, and the bile takes the fat-based toxins out in the bile. And what happens if we've got a stagnant gut, or irritable bowel, bloating, belching, indigestion, grumpy tummy? Everything slows down, and so we don't detox as rapidly as we should. And the other biggest organ of the body is the one you can look at. It's your skin. So please get out every day and make sure that you do some exercise. An even moderate amount of perspiration will be detoxing. And when you come home, have a cool shower. It freshens you up, but it also gets rid of those toxins that you've been sweating out. Perspiring and glowing for the ladies.
That's the benefit of the high humidity in February. That's the only benefit of high humidity in February.
Don't talk to me about that, Patty. I'm not full, but we're not boiling yet, but it's starting to help.
Excuse me, Merlene.
Yes.
Can you share with us any suggestions for people who have had their gallbladder removed, how they can best support themselves?
Once it's out, it doesn't concentrate the bile, but you still produce bile, and even though it's a little bit weaker, it goes down through the bile duct into the head of the pancreas, where it combines with the pancreatic enzymes, and then it flows into the duodenum. So you still get the same amount of bile, but it's less concentrated, and so it may not dissolve some of those fatty substances that it's meant to dissolve.
So it would be wise not to put too much fat into your system.
There used to be a saying in medicine, and Di, you will know this one. The most common people who have their gallbladders out are female, fertile, 40, flatulent, and Burton?
Sounds like fair fat 40.
No, there's an extra one. And getting younger. That was the other one.
So what was it?
So if you're all here and you're over 40, you probably survived that.
Well, you're going to get 3 or 4.
But you look less than that, so be careful, Di.
Marlene, I heard that a lot of teenagers are getting their gallbladders removed because they have low-fat diets. Have you heard of that? I knew a few kids getting them taken out.
It may, the only reason I could think of for that is if they're not having enough of their fat-soluble vitamins.
For example?
A, D, E, K. ADEK.
In what foods?
You can Google that more than I can pull it off the top of my head.
In vitamins A, D,
A, D, E, K are the fat-soluble ones. The water-soluble ones are B and C.
Merlene, how much does this mean, this continent coming up, to feed how many people? How many serve?
Sorry, that would serve approximately 3 to 4. Because of the numbers tonight, I think Cheryl might have let you know we won't be cooking as usual. We will be giving you a taste test at the end. Those of you who want to come past again, you could have a look at Cheryl's quinoa. It's starting to puff up, absorb all the moisture, and you can get an idea of what it's going to be like in a couple of minutes. This curry I'm going to leave the lid on, and hope it decides to do all right. But how many of you think that these recipes tonight have been difficult to do? And, with a curry, you can just look in the fridge, pull out anything that's veggie, and throw it all in. Like I've already altered the recipe that's on here, mainly because I wanted this, if I couldn't get something, I'd substitute something else. If it's green, we'll substitute with green. Now, while you're, when the curry's nearly finished, I brought some lecithin. You can get it at the health shop. It's a nice big packet. What's the benefit of lecithin?
Protein?
Yes, it's, no, there's no protein. It comes from soybeans, but there's no protein in it, and therefore people who react to soybeans are very unlikely, but not 100% proof, of not reacting to lecithin. Lecithin is a good thing for making oil and water to mix. Okay, so you can use it for making an emulsion, but it's also got a lot of glutathione in it. So this is... That's almost.
Hopefully.
And Merlene, glutatione, what's that good for?
Glutathione, it's one of the body's strongest antioxidants. It's in every one of our cells. Our body makes it, especially our liver makes it, to do all the detox pathways. There's detox phase 1, 2 and 3, and we need glutathione at each of those steps because what it does is it grabs all the nasty chemicals, it adds the sulfur from the glutathione, the cysteine, part of the molecule, and that tends to make it, instead of being fat soluble, it turns it into water soluble, and then in the phase 2, it can be detoxed and go out as a water soluble thing through the kidneys. Do you remember back when you started nursing, there would have been patients who wanted to take overdoses of
Nutmeg?
Bex.
Bex, yes. APs, okay, and that, and lecithin and glutathione, and another compound called NAC, NAC, which is N-acetylcysteine, are the agents that were given, oftentimes intravenously, because quite often these people were unconscious, as a way of detoxing the liver and helping to support the liver and keep the people alive. Yes.
So is the natural oil, is that, so if I just take that, like the capsules that I get from confounding, is that helping my liver?
N-acetylcysteine can help your liver,
Yeah.
but my question is, why not get your nutrients? You're only getting one nutrient. How do you know that you haven't got a deficiency of anything else that's required in the pathway?
Does that also help your joints?
It's very good for inflammation,
That's why.
okay? But think of all the anti-inflammatories in foods,
Yeah.
and which is cheaper
Food.
And healthier.
and healthier, and you're getting your combinations right. And that's the beauty about cooking. You're not only getting the things that you need, you're getting it at the cheapest price, and if you focus on 80% of your shopping comes in as fruit and veggies and nuts and seeds and legumes and lentils, you're shopping at the bottom of the price range, at the top of the nutrient range.
Can we finish this off, please?
That would be lovely, thank you. And I think,
So, Marlene, there's a chemical reaction with all of these, so they're all working together. So,
there are many antioxidants. For example, in your green leafies, there's not only the glutathione, there's a whole lot of other antioxidants. Every different colour has different antioxidants. In the tomato, there's the lycopene. In the beetroot, there's other chemicals. Okay?
So is that within the spinach and all of that stuff?
Yes? All of your green leafies have a lot of the chemicals that are required for the detox processes. So when your mother said to you, eat your greens, she knew something.
Does that include like peas? Does that include like green peas, green beans?
Beans and peas don't have the sulfur compounds in them as much. Okay? They are the legumes, they've got more protein. This at last is starting to boil. I'm happy. We add these two, the herbs and the snow peas and the lecithin right near the end. Dementia can be described as cognitive ageing that is greater than what one would expect of their biological ageing. It causes mental confusion. People get lost in time and place. You say, where have I forgot my keys? Or you start to believe in the hereafter. What am I hereafter? And it even gets bad so that when people start talking to you, you can't understand what they're saying because their thoughts are so jumbled that what they speak becomes a word salad. Their mood can vary quite a bit. Oftentimes they may become apathetic or angry or agitated or very anxious. Anxiety, depression may coexist or it may be part of the dementia. Sometimes people have hallucinations, they may develop paranoia. They often show up as having appetite and muscle loss, weakness, falls, fractures. And there are several types of dementia, as probably most of you know. Tonight we're only going to be talking about the Alzheimer's disease, which is 70% of the population and 70% of dementia. The Alzheimer's risks are age. If you carry a gene that's called ApoE, or if you have Down syndrome, that can predispose to earlier dementia. If you have high cholesterol, high blood pressure, obesity, inactivity, diabetes, if you drink more than one standard serve per day, or are smoking, or using drugs, or have depression, you're at increased risk. And so lifestyle measures are the only things we've got at the moment to try and reduce that. There are several other types of dementia. One's called vascular dementia that follows strokes. There's Lewy body dementia, and unfortunately this often shows up in young men. Young by, I mean, late 40s, early 50s, and their dementia is very rapidly progressing. Frontotemporal dementia, people actually lose the ability to have reasonable relationships, and that can be really stressful. Mixed dementia, you can have more than one type of any of those. Things that cause alterations in the brain, like HIV, smoking, drugs, alcohol, traumatic brain injury, cause encephalopathies. That's different from dementias. There are things that cause nutritional deficiencies, and I can remember that for years and years. I've checked every person who has come into a nursing home or aged care facility for their vitamin D. The normal level in Australia is said to be 50 to 100. Now most people, most doctors who know anything about vitamin D would like to have it over 80. But the government in its wisdom has said 50 to 100. If your vitamin D level goes over 400, and this is another illustration of the point, if a little's good, a lot's not necessarily better. Over 400, vitamin D is toxic. So do not go swallowing an overdose of your vitamin D capsule. One a day is fine. But in the nursing home, I would measure the vitamin D level, and sometimes the patient's levels were down at 13 and 14. Wow. And when we supplemented with vitamin D, over a period of about 8 weeks, they would start to relate a little bit better. But of course it doesn't stop Alzheimer's just by supplementing with one thing. Environmental toxins, will come to that very shortly. So what are the risk factors? We've partly discussed that. An unhealthy diet, alcohol misuse, smoking and diabetes are things that we can do something about. The ApoE gene, either types 3 or 4. Yes?
Is there a correlation if you're saying people are in aged care and their vitamin D levels down to 13? Would that create a dementia?
It can exacerbate it. It doesn't cause it necessarily. These are people who have refused to go outside, and when I used to try and encourage them to go out on the sunny balcony, they would get absolutely paranoid and refuse to go. Sorry. The ApoE4 is important because people can be tested for it, and there is a new study out this year that says people from the African subcontinent, the ApoE capital E, epsilon 3 and 4 also put people more at risk. So there is the familial aggregation. If your relatives of the previous generation have had Alzheimer's, it doesn't mean that you will have Alzheimer's, but start working early to try and prevent it.
Have they got any criteria as to who should get tested? As in,
if you've got a family history, if I had a family history, I would probably go and get tested. It's not pointing the bone at you, it's giving you advance notice. Okay? And as we go through the talk tonight, I hope that we will see a few little glimmers of hope.
Sorry, and the other quick question statement. So, Chris Hemsworth, is that the gene that he's got from both parents or something?
Maybe, but I haven't asked him and that hasn't come out.
He's got some special out, like special series out at the moment because he's got an increased risk of dementia, so I'm assuming it's that. He's talking about all sorts of different things to try and prevent it.
Okay, so obesity, hypertension and abnormal blood lipids are things that we can do something about. Neuronal damage, well, if it's alcohol, we can try and prevent and change your lifestyle. If people have been inherited certain genes that increase the risk of clotting, that can also increase the risk of Alzheimer's. What are some of the things that help to reduce the risk? Well, it was said that education may be a partial prevention. So keep reading, keep educating yourself, take an interest in life. Your physical activity, your mental activity, your socialisation and your diet are 4 major areas that we can increase reduce the risks and increase our rate of recovery as far as possible. They are protected. So here's a picture of the normal brain and compare it with the Alzheimer's brain. And down at the bottom, the arrow says hippocampus. You can compare the size of one with the other. You can compare the amount of white matter, which is not a huge loss, but the biggest loss is the grey matter that's coloured yellow there. And the hippocampus is part of our memory area. So here's the healthy brain and the severe Alzheimer's again. This is what it looks like at post-mortem. You can see the pinky grey area is the grey matter. Now, what's actually happening in Alzheimer's? Well, several things. If we start down the bottom, there may be hormonal imbalances. There's certainly oxidative stress, and these are some of the bad chemicals that cause damage to our cells, and they can cause inflammation of the nerves. It can attack the mitochondria, which are our energy batteries inside every cell. It can cause tangling of the tau protein. The tau protein, you can see that it just wraps around little tiny nerve fibrils, and when it gets tangled up, like on the right-hand side over there, that's called tau tangles, and it's due to an increase of phosphorylation. Amyloid plaques contribute to Alzheimer's, and also there are things that block the receptors for acetylcholine. So all of these things contribute to Alzheimer's. But is Alzheimer's actually type 3 diabetes? Well, there's a lot of evidence that there is a close correlation. And a lot of people are saying maybe it is diabetes of the brain. And there is a lot of evidence that is moving that way. You can see up in the blue arrow that we've known for a long time that diabetes, fatty liver, obesity, peripheral insulin resistance is associated with Alzheimer's. But within the brain, there is a reduced sensitivity to insulin, and with the reduced sensitivity to insulin, because the brain's energy comes from glucose. It then means that if your brain glucose is down, you can't think as fast. And there is dysfunction at the nerve cells and the glial cells that help to support the nerve cells. When this happens, there's an increase in tau protein, there is an increase in tau protein, there's an increase in beta amyloid, and it causes stress factors to increase, and it increases plaques. And all of this increases the risk of Alzheimer's occurring. So there's a few more things that can happen that can contribute toward Alzheimer's. We need all of those healthy minerals.
Can that be reversed in the brain or not, that type 3?
Let me come to that a little bit later on. There's healthy minerals that help to support the brain. But up on the far side, you can see on the balance that if out of the environment, we know that aluminium, cadmium, lead, mercury, all of which are out in our environment. All of us breathe the air that comes from vehicle exhausts, factory fumes, power stations, and we can't do anything about that. All right? So the metal overload can contribute to beta amyloid, tau protein tangles, and nerve inflammation. What are other risks for Alzheimer's? There's a lot of investigation going into bacterial infections, like Porphyromonas gingivalis, which is a little bug that lives in our mouth. Okay, so if you want to reduce the concentration, maybe clean your teeth and floss. That is known that it can travel from the mouth and the back of the nose. It can travel along the olfactory nerve pathway and straight up through the cribriform plate and into the base of the brain near the hippocampus. You remember where the hippocampus was a few slides back. All right, there's viral infections, glandular fever, cytomegalovirus, and the herpes simplex virus, the one that causes those little painful ulcers, blisters and ulcers on the edge of the lip margin and just inside the nose. Herpes simplex type 1, not the downstairs one, we're not talking about that tonight. And a trial of antivirals is actually going on at the moment. The results should be in by December next year. This will be really exciting because they're using antivirals to see whether they can prevent a certain percentage of Alzheimer's. Maybe there's other things that are causing or contributing to Alzheimer's. There has been one anti-amyloid drug that is an immunosuppressant, lecanemab. It clears the beta amyloid plaques, but it doesn't reverse Alzheimer's, sadly. So how can we try and future-proof against Alzheimer's? One, we've got to look after ourselves.
So you're saying the drug that cuts down on the plaque. So does that mean it slows down the Alzheimer's disease, the progress of it, or it doesn't change it at all?
As far as I know, it doesn't change the Alzheimer's once people have it. And at the moment, people may even start getting their Alzheimer's 15, 20 years before it becomes a really easy to diagnose thing. So we might have missed the bus for some people. So let's learn to look after ourselves, and you can see that here is the nerve nucleus, and there is the axon terminal. The Schwann cells are the insulation material. and the myelin sheath, the nucleus, the cell body, and the dendrites. Now, we're going to be talking about these dendrites in a little while. So just remember that they are the connections that connect nerve cells with up to 3,000 other nerve cells at a time. So how can we try and reduce the risk of type 3 diabetes? The sulfur veggies, cabbage, cauliflower, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, your greens and your herbs are all really useful. Your whole grains and your flaxseed and your beans and peas and seeds and nuts and things like ginger and spices, and your vitamin C is really important in your citrus, your berries, and your pomegranate. Just think of all the colourful, beautiful things that are available, and let's start growing some for ourselves and make sure that we wash our leafy greens well, because if the heavy metals land on the leafy green, you can wash 97% of it off because it's only on the surface. Of all the heavy metals that go down into the soil, only about 3% get absorbed into the plant, so even your beets are pretty safe, and carrots, and on the leaves, only about 3% is actually in the leaf structure. So wash your plants well before you use them.
Merlene, mushrooms aren't mentioned at all. Are they just not super good for brains, or?
I haven't mentioned them because they probably, you can get them at the supermarket, and I'm going to be talking about them shortly. But let's talk about something else next. So food is really, really important. That's where we get our major nutrition. But there are also medicinal plants, and some of the plants that are used for diabetes and for memory are milk thistle, aloe vera, cayenne pepper, licorice, stevia, cinnamon, okra. Okra is a really good plant for you to put in your curries. Locut, dandelion, the dandelion root makes a wonderful coffee. Black plum, Garcinia, fenugreek. Green tea comes with pluses and minuses. Garlic is wonderful. Bitter gourds and the turmeric that we've used tonight. Okay? And here, thank you for getting me to the
I just noticed
point.
they weren't there.
Queensland University has this month published data that lion's mane mushrooms contain a compound that stimulates neurons to grow new dendrites. So it increases the connections, which means that you've got more ways around the roadblock. Other types of mushrooms, especially porcini mushrooms, contain antioxidants, and that is also very useful for helping our neurons to try and work. They're delicious when they're very lightly done in a fairly dry fry pan on a medium heat for a few minutes. And this will show you a few of the other mushroom types that have plenty of antioxidants. Now, mushrooms are wonderful little things. I'm not saying they're the cure for dementia. Please take that away. Underlined. Mushrooms are not the cure for dementia. But they do have they're about 80 to 90% water, but out of the rest of it, there is not a lot of fat, but there are about nearly 10% protein. There is special other multiple compounds that are really, really helpful and are high in antioxidants. So just adding a few little mushrooms in for variety but it also helps your general health. Okay, so I think that you've seen this coconut curry. It's got healthy lipids from the coconut oil and the coconut milk. The onion and garlic raise glutathione. The ginger and tomato has melatonin, lycopene, and lots of other good healthy chemicals. The broccoli contains N-acetylcysteine, which is once again a sulfur compound that helps to make glutathione. The turmeric in spices has curcumin, which helps to form glutathione. Carrots, snow peas, brassica, coriander all make glutathione from their sulfur-rich amino acids, and so does avocado. So if you like avocado, remember it's doing you good. Quinoa and brown rice and Brazil nuts all contain selenium, and selenium helps with making glutathione work. So does vitamin C. Tempeh has genistein, and that is a prebiotic which helps our gut to detox, and it also has plenty of fibre. Magnesium, calcium, phosphorus, and the 9 essential amino acids and isoflavone are all in the curry. Lemon juice peppers have vitamin C, which helps to regenerate the glutathione. If the glutathione meets, somebody and has its sulfur taken off it, then the vitamin C will help it to recover. What are some of the other things? If we keep moving, so getting some exercise, especially some sunlight, fresh air, nature time, all of that is really helpful. And even on a rainy day, get your exercise inside. There are exercises you can do sitting down on a chair, near a sun. Do your chair exercises, hop on a treadmill if you've got one. Otherwise, walk up and down the corridor 15 times. Okay. There has been several reports in the literature of cognitive improvement following fecal microbial transplant. So a fecal microbial transplant used to be only if you had a colonoscopy and they gave you like a syringe full of healthy bugs into the upper part of the bowel, somewhere near the appendix. But now these healthy bugs can be freeze-dried, put in a capsule, and your specialist, gastroenterologist, would be able to prescribe for you if that's needed. And there's, as I said, there's been several case studies where this has happened. But like with a lot of things, it's been really useful in some situations, but it doesn't cure a large percentage of Alzheimer's. So if there's any questions, don't make them too hard. I need to go home.
Do you mind if I ask you if you've changed your diet in the last few years since you've retired? You had more time to look after yourself.
I beg your pardon?
Do you mind if I ask you if you've changed your diet a little bit over the last couple of years since you retired to give yourself more time and space?
No. I retired just over 12 months ago.
Yeah.
I think the things that I have is that my stress load has gone down. Also, I can manage the pain from a motor vehicle accident many years ago that caused me 3 spinal operations. And so that has made, it means that I can make my life work a bit better, and I don't have to be sitting down and stuck in difficult positions. Okay?
Are there any studies with mind games, as in playing cards, doing Sudokus?
Yeah, well, there was some initial evidence that seemed to help, but it hasn't stood up in the long term. But, the more you educate your mind, participate in friendly social activities, just interacting with people and seeing if you can get the cogs working and saying, what was that person's name? Half an hour after you've gone home. And I just brought a sample of some dried porcini mushrooms, just to answer your question. These have got antioxidants, but I didn't have a sample of the lion's mane one. The lion's mane is being marketed at a fairly expensive rate in liquids and capsules in the health shops. I don't think that that's going to be the whole answer either. So, for tonight, I haven't got the whole answer to Alzheimer's, but there's lots of things that we can do. Our diet, our lifestyle, sunshine, water, rest, air, exercise, de-stress, reduce diabetes, high blood pressure, hypertension, and the lifestyle things that are going to cause people problems down the track. So that's in summary. Let's do what we can until we find out that there's a few more things that we can do that will make it even more successful. So I'm not here to say we can totally prevent Alzheimer's. I'm saying let's reduce risk. So risk minimisation, come on.
My mother was brilliant. She was an artist and singer, and then took up bridge when she was about 75 and became a top bridge player, which is pretty difficult to do, and also took up Italian and beat the Italians in Italian in the HSC, became second. But what happened when she got Alzheimer's, well, we were able to delay it with Rami, which is a plant.
Which is another herb. Unfortunately, it wasn't on that picture.
But what happened to her when she lost the capacity to remember words and she sort of tried to capture them? And she'd ask me the same question again, and I'd say, at work, and she'd ask me again. But she could remember, even when she was almost done, all the songs. She could sing all the songs from last century, from the century before even. She was just amazing. But she could sing in perfect pitch all the different songs because she obviously was using another part of the brain, it's like the creative part.
I think that the singing is a really powerful thing that we can do because the more we increase our neurotransmitters, the better our brains will function.
Can you explain why she had Alzheimer's, but you could still remember that part?
No, I've seen that before.
Yeah.
I've had a patient with not Alzheimer's, with vascular dementia, and she wasn't able to talk at all for about 12 months, and then a physio came along and she started getting the lady doing arm exercises, and when the lady was doing arm exercises, she was saying, Julie, 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 because that was the physiotherapist's name. And one day, the lady said, Julie, Julie, but she couldn't say Julie any other time except for when she moved the arm, and that was because the arm movement control centre is very close to the speech centre. So I hope that that's of some use to somebody.